Where are we today, Bill?
Well, Rick, we are in Greenland, New Hampshire, of course, New Hampshire, and we are in the town common, I guess, of Greenland, and it's a very beautiful little New England colonial buildings all around this very gorgeous little town.
Yeah.
And we are here today to talk about a woman who displayed remarkable courage, tenacity, all for the quest of freedom.
Yep. Well, we're not actually at a grave site.
No, we're not.
But we are very appropriately at a memorial for Ona Marie Judge Staines, who was an escaped slave, and there's quite a story behind that. Both of us, when we first heard this story, were very moved by it.
Absolutely.
And felt very definitely this had to be in our book. Fortunately, because of the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire, located in Portsmouth, her story is being told in more places than just our book,
yes.
Which is very appropriate because it is a very, very interesting story. So what really happened with George, she was actually the personal slave servant for Martha Washington.
Yes.
And when George Washington was elected, they did originally go to New York, where I think also Una accompanied them, I believe. We did read a book called Never Caught.
Never Caught, yes.
Which is worth checking out because it does get into more detail about how all of this happened. When she got to Philadelphia, it was a much different world from what she had experienced in Virginia.
Yes.
In Virginia, you did not see free slaves walking around on a regular basis. In Philadelphia, you did. There were people, Black Americans, who were walking around free. And when Una saw this, apparently she realized, perhaps I could escape as well. And she did.
Yeah.
She managed to get on a ship that eventually took her to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And what is really interesting about this is that she did find a life in Portsmouth. But unfortunately for her, although in the long run it worked out, I guess, but the Washingtons found out that she was there. Mm-hmm. And do you want to tell how that happened?
Well, it's kind of an interesting thing I was thinking about. I think there was a 6-month rule in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
If you brought a slave to Philadelphia and you resided there in Philadelphia for over 6 months,
yep,
you were automatically free.
Yep.
So to navigate that,
yeah,
people, including the Washingtons, would ship their slaves back to Virginia.
That's correct.
Just as the due date would come around.
Yep.
So then they'd have to come back, and then the process was repeated.
Yep.
So she was compelled to find a way to
escape that.
There were enough free blacks in Philadelphia that they arranged passage for her to get on board a ship and come to Portsmouth.
Yep.
So there we kind of that's where the story there's more intrigue here.
It does get interesting.
And it involves several major players in the American Revolution.
That's right. So, I mean, literally, I think you could look at it this way. One day she's walking down the street in Portsmouth and someone recognizes her. It's the daughter of John Langdon, who was a very important shipbuilder, businessman, senator, more importantly, maybe, perhaps, apparently a reasonably good friend of the Washingtons.
Yes.
And a good enough friend that the daughter also would recognize the slave because she had seen her with the Washingtons. So John Langdon, who was put in sort of a weird position in a way, although I'm not sure what he thought about it exactly at the beginning, but he did contact the Washingtons, and obviously they wanted her return. They tried a number of times to get her back, and she did ask for her freedom, which was refused. Martha Washington very definitely wanted Ona back. She also had planned to give Ona to her
a niece, I believe.
I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah.
And
Apparently,
Ona,
she was a very skilled seamstress,
right,
which is how she made her living after
later on.
and when she was free.
And she, for a number of reasons, apparently, had noticed she knew the niece and had no desire to be there. So obviously, she did not want to go back to the Washingtons at this point. So they did. The first guy they sent to try to deal with this was a man named Joseph Whipple. Well, who's Joseph Whipple?
Well, we've talked about Joseph Whipple before.
Yeah.
When we did our video on the Nancy Barton story,
Yes,
Joseph Whipple shows up in that story. So it's one and the same. Also, apparently, a very good friend. Well, of course, his brother to William Whipple, who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
So they were all major players in the American Revolution
and the establishment of New Hampshire.
Yes, absolutely.
As a state. So apparently, they did offer. I mean, they came up with an offer for freedom, I think, after Martha died.
Yes.
And so they arranged for a ship to come and pick up Ona, and apparently she didn't go.
Yeah, the last minute she ditched the offer.
Decided this was not really what she wanted to do, and probably it was a wise decision. Just so we can say where we got some of this information, back in 1846, which is later, Reverend Benjamin Chase interviewed Ona and did speak to, and she spoke quite frankly, apparently, about what it was like to live with the Washingtons. She did mention that she was not really ill-treated, but that, on the other hand, she was not free. Okay, a second occasion, they sent a man named Bassett, who I believe was related to the Washingtons in some way. And he was, basically told, whatever it takes.
Bring her back.
Bring her back. Force her if you have to. So she did escape to Greenland,
yes.
New Hampshire, which is where this memorial now stands. But what adds a little more interest to this story is that apparently John Langdon, at least in some way, facilitated or helped her escape.
Yes.
And both Bill and I think you agree that this is something that we find, I don't know what the right word is, perhaps encouraging, but certainly interesting, that someone at that time who did indeed own slaves, came from a family that have been in the trade, in the slave trade, built the ships that were involved with the slave trade, but on some level had enough empathy or something to help her escape to Greenland. And, we can't know exactly what was going on in his mind, but he also tended to treat his servants, house servants mostly, I believe, but also quite fairly, given the situation. I'm sure from the point of view of today, fairly is not what we should be saying. But he apparently actually even paid them. We will be, I think we've already done.
Well, we did John, William Whipple and William and his servant Prince Whipple, which were earlier videos, which we probably should reference in the comment section about this, because they all play an integral part. And even though men of the time they all had their doubts, apparently, about the institution
Some
of
of them,
slavery.
not all, I don't think.
No, not everybody.
Some did, I think.
But there was, you know.
William Whipple seemed to have had some, and we have covered that in another video, and it's also in our book. So she did come here. You know, by today's standards, Greenland is not very far from Portsmouth, but apparently back in those days it was far enough. And she came back here, and she did stay with the family, the Jack family. And then eventually she married a man named Staines.
Yes, Jack Staines. He was a sailor.
He was a sailor.
Yeah, free man
and
a sailor.
He was a free black person.
Yeah.
And so they got married, did have 3 children.
Yeah.
I believe all of whom died before Ona did.
Yes.
And of course her husband did too. He died in 1803.
Yes.
And of course when Ona did all of this, she was a very relatively young girl.
Right. I think in her 20s.
Yeah.
That's about right.
So what she did after her husband died, she did make a living. As you said, she was apparently a seamstress. And she did work in a number of households. She even worked for the Josiah Bartlett family, whom we've also talked to, and was a important player in the creation of this country. She never really escaped poverty.
No.
But she did learn to read.
Yes.
And she became a very devout Christian.
Yeah.
And as she is quoted somewhere as saying, well, back when she refused to go, she said, "I am free now, choose to remain so."
Yes.
But she also said in her interview with Benjamin Chase that even in spite of the fact that maybe her life was quite a bit harder as a freed person working, she would not go back because she was not free.
Freedom was worth the effort.
Freedom was worth the effort. Do you want to quickly just maybe read part of the wanted poster? Because that's sort of interesting.
You think I can see that?
You can read that, or maybe you can't.
Yeah. Yes, we do have a copy of a wanted poster. It was a $10 reward.
$10 reward
to bring her back to the Washingtons and return her to Virginia, which was part of the law in those days. That was, that was perfectly legal. You could do that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think, I don't know where we're going here, but I think we did mention that we're not at a gravesite.
That's correct.
But she is buried here in Greenland.
That's we apparently.
Yes, there is a graveyard, and it is on very private property.
Yeah.
The Black Heritage Trail people have recommended that you try not to seek it out.
That's how
and it is kind of assumed that it's the grave, but it is the Staines family plot on what would have been their land holdings at the time.
Correct.
So we have respected that. We haven't tried to seek it out. There are, if you go on the internet, there are of course photographs of the grave if that interests you, and you probably should do that. But I would discourage you from trying to find it and leave it at that, because it is a private place, and that's what we chose to do in the book. We didn't seek it out. So.
And I think this
is very appropriate here.
Does a great job of, in a very short form, telling the story, which we just made longer. But as I said, I mean, both of us were very affected by this story. I mean, it's a very unique story, and maybe it's not unique, but I think it is in the sense that it involved the Washingtons. It's probably not unique that a escaped slave might be recognized by somebody who then would go back and tell the owners, where that person was. But
I think it's also appropriate to say that any good historian would say, and I say it all the time, not that I'm a great historian, but you cannot judge the past by the standards of the day. And of course, slavery was legal. The Washingtons didn't think there was anything wrong with it. The Langdons, the Whipples, they might have been on the fence, but they had all profited from it. And it doesn't, that's very controversial by today's standards.
Right, it is.
You cannot condemn them for living in a different time and a different century. And the beginnings, the stirrings of abolitionism in this country had already begun during the Revolution, and of course, culminated in the Civil War.
Yep. It took time.
Yes.
And we still haven't completely solved everything, but it certainly feels like progress has been made. And as I said, I think this is a very appropriate memorial. And I hope some people will come here and check it out. Probably the best place to park is behind the church across the street.
We did ask permission, by the way, from a gentleman.
So Ona, even though you're not buried right here, you definitely rest in peace and in freedom.
Absolutely.